Shalom, shalom. I want to give all the praise, all the glory, all the honor unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakah, Quadash. Double honors goes out to the elder apostles of Great Millstone for teaching me the truth. Also want to acknowledge Al Akyam who are pushing the truth with sincerity throughout the four corners of the earth. And shalom to the elect of the nation of Israel. This is the brother Shabai from the GMS Denver camp. And I'm going to go in on Proverbs, the 16th chapter, through the Spirit. So without further ado, starting at the top, it says, "The preparations of the heart in man, and the answer of the tongue is from Yahweh." All right, so everything is from Yahweh. You know, the way you prepare in your mind, you know, the way you answer when it comes to these scriptures, really when it comes to anything, the way you answer a man, you know, it's all from Yahweh, Bashem Yahushai. Okay, so that's why we're always studied up. We're diligent, you know. If we claim to be the prophets and the servants of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, then we have to be, you know, we have to be on point with the doctrine, with the way we answer people, you know. Let's get this precept in 1 Peter 3. In verse 15 it says, "But sanctify Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, the Most High, in your hearts, in your mind, and be ready always to give an answer to every man that asketh you a reason of the hope that is in you with meekness and fear." See? So if anybody has a question or you know, or asks us why we have this type of spirit on us, you got to understand and know why, and have that answer ready according to truth. You know, we're gonna tell them, hey, the Most High Yahweh Bashem Yahushai has put His men in this spirit, has set us up in the spirit to you know, do what we do, to prophesy, to be diligent, you know, to teach our people, to show them their transgressions. See? So that answer comes from Yahweh. And this is God given, like they say in the world. This is Yahweh given. All the ways of a man are clean in his own eyes, but Yahweh weigheth the spirits. Okay? So you have people out there thinking that they're righteous, but at the end of the day, Yahweh Bashem Yahushai are going to weigh the spirits, and the spirits of the elect are the only ones going to be worthy of salvation. And it's because we have a spirit to actually yearn and try to know the ways of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. When these people out here, the majority of them, they're just trying to be a good person according to this world, you know, but they don't know the ways of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. Okay, so that's why even with this truth, you know, even with salvation, you have to come to the true servants, the true prophets. You have to come to the gates to enter into the kingdom. So if you're dealing with false prophets, and you're being led by false prophets, or you're being led by men whose spirits are not lined up with Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, then guess what? You're going to fall short. Commit thy works unto Yahweh, and thy thoughts shall be established. You see that? So that's what the you know, we open up the lesson, you know, said, you know, we talk about the sincere, those doing the work with sincerity. Okay, if you're sincere, you're going to commit to these works. and then you diligent and you're consistent, guess what? Your thoughts will be established. Meaning your thoughts will be, you'll be in the same mindset as Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. You'll be like-minded with the Heavenly Father and the Son and the brethren. Then your thoughts will be established. When we are out in the world, we look at certain things, and we look at the same thing someone else is looking at, and if they're not in the spirit of Yahweh Hashem Yahushai, the way our thoughts are established, we look at something like, oh shit. Like for instance, you might look and see what they call a retard in the world, right? People are like, they give them, people are trying to be nice to people with, that are slow, handicapped, retarded, That's not the politically correct way to say it, but you see, but we look at that shit as we know what it is. We're like, oh shit, that dude, he must have been a wicked ass person in his past life. Meanwhile, everybody else look at him like, oh, well, it's so cool how he can play Xbox, even though he's handicapped, mentally challenged, retarded. You see? And that's just one example, but how our thoughts are different, because we know and understand the truth, Yahweh hath made all things for himself, even the wicked for the day of evil. Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, have created the wicked for the day of evil. So, these Edomites, they serve a purpose. They're going to be destroyed on the day of evil, on the day of Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, on the day of the heathen, you see? Everyone that is proud in heart is an abomination to Yahweh. Though hand join in hand, he shall not be unpunished. Okay? So if you're proud, you're not following Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. You're in the mindset of an Edomite. Because the Edomites are the most proud race on the planet Earth. Okay? Go read Obadiah. It tells you how the pride of their heart shall deceive them. Verse 6, it says, by mercy and truth iniquity is purged, and by the fear of Yahweh men depart from evil. Right? Yeah, because evil goes into bad times, but by the men who are sincere, the elect, by us having the fear of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, it's going to take us away from the destruction, the day of the heathen, the day of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, the last day when that that whole how do you say it? Catastrophic event happens with the end of the last day, the end. Guess who's going to depart from evil that way? We're going to be up, Lord's will, I'm in that number. We're going to be up in a chariot, observing the destruction from a chariot, right? Hiding ourselves in the chambers of what you call UFOs, okay? While the indignation of Yahweh passes. When a man's ways please Yahweh, he maketh even his enemies be at peace with him, right? You might, you doing the work of the Lord, you sincere, you don't miss the lessons daily, you don't miss camps, you're a sincere brother, you fast, you pray, Well, guess what? You might go to the workplace and Esau Edom, he might be your boss or whatever. But guess what? Even he's good to you. The Edomites, they may not like you, but they sometimes they take a liking into Jake. And it's kind of like that right now for me at my gig. The Edomite who owns it, he seems to have taken a liking to me, And now we don't sit there and be ignorant and be naive. But you can see when a man is, the Lord has caused a man to have favor on you, right? So that's fulfilling that prophecy. He makes his enemies be at peace with you. Meaning, these Edomites, they might find favor on you, at the workplace. I use that as an example because, right, it's like the plantation, right? The modern day plantation. There was even when it was slavery, hardcore slavery. They had this was something that happened where the enemies were at peace with some of the slaves. Better is a little with righteousness than great revenues without right. A man's heart deviseth his way, but Yahweh directeth his steps. So your mind can plan certain things, or you can look in your mind and say, you know what, this is what's going to happen, or this is what I'm going to do, or these are my plans. But if it's not the Lord's will, you got to remember at the end of the day, He's directing our steps. He's going to, be have the final say on the outcome of every single circumstance, of every single event in our life. Yahweh directs our steps. A divine sentence is in the lips of the king. His mouth transgresseth not in judgment. A just weight and balance are Yahweh's, and the weights of the bag are his work. Okay? A just weight, so balance, right? If it's out of balance, it's an abomination to Yahweh, the scriptures tell you. Let's get that real quick. Proverbs 11:1. A false balance is abomination to Yahweh, but a just weight is his delight. Okay? So even in this walk of ours, we got to balance it out. You can't be overly righteous, And you can't be overly wicked, because the Most High will, if you have a good spirit, if you have a sound body and mind, Yahweh's going to, your spirit's going to correct you through the spirit and power of Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai. You'll have a vexation in your spirit if you're going too far to the left or too far to the right. See? It said a just weight and balance are Yahweh's. All the weights of the bag are his work. It is an abomination to kings to commit wickedness, for a throne is established by righteousness. Okay? And that's why we're going to come into that dominion, that rulership. Okay? Because we are coming into that, we're coming into that ruling mindset, that being kings, being joint heirs with Yahushai. Okay? And the throne that's going to be established forever, which is Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai's kingdom, is going to be established in righteousness. Okay? So the true kings are the Israelites, the so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans. And guess what? The elect, the 144,000, you're going to be those men that have that rulership, that dominion. Righteous lips are the delight of kings, and they love him that speaketh right. Right. And really, again, going into the dominion, the 144,000, which are the true kings of the earth, we are all in one accordance, and we do love those that speak upright. Meanwhile, the world right now, they hate the ones that speaketh upright, right? It tells you that in Amos, right? Was it Amos 5:10 maybe? I'm trying to remember. Yep. Amos 5:10. They hate him that rebuketh in the gate, and they abhor him that speaketh uprightly. You see? But guess who? The men who are in this same spirit as you, when you speak uprightly, you take delight in that. You love righteousness, in the spirit. Righteous lips are the delight of kings, and they love him that speaketh right. Right. The wrath of a king is as messengers of death, but a wise man will pacify it. In the light of the king's countenance is life, and his favor is as a cloud of the latter rain. Okay? How much better is it to get wisdom than gold, and to get understanding rather than to be chosen than silver? See that? So we always tell you how how valuable this wisdom is. Because we understand that in the scriptures, when the destruction comes, you're not going to be able to buy yourself out of it. You're not going to be able to say, okay, Yahweh, I have all this gold, let me give this to you, and please don't destroy me. Or you can say, oh, well, I got silver also, I have all these shekels of silver, and try to buy your salvation. No, the wisdom is what's going to get salvation to the elect. Those who, use wisdom. Because Esau, he's got all kinds of gold. He's got all the kind of silver. You see, but that's not going to keep him from being destroyed. Just because he has some riches and valuables. Verse 17, the highway of the upright is to depart from evil. He that keepeth his way preserveth his soul. And that's the key, keepeth. Okay? It's not just like for a season, We got to try to keep the righteous ways of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai continually, consistently. And keeping integrity, walking in integrity, not being a total nigga when you're away from the brotherhood, or you're not, what I mean? You're acting you're a whole different person when you're not around the brothers. This is not what's going to preserve your soul. Pride goeth before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall. So that's why, the Most High Yahweh, He's the one who He can He can raise you up and He can humble you. You always have to remember that. So if you get too proud, the Most High, it's easy for Him to humble you. It's easy for Him to bring you down. Better, see, there's 19. I didn't know this was going to say this. Better is it to be of an humble spirit with the lowly than to divide the spoil with the proud. Okay? So it's better to be around the brethren who are in a humble spirit, and we're considered the lowly right now, right? Than to divide the spoil of the proud, and that going into like your enemies, like right now, who's the proud? Edomites. Why are they so proud? Because they have all the control. They have all the wealth. They have all the riches. They have the dominion right now. But would you rather be right now, as when you actually understand this truth and you actually have wisdom, would you, even though you know that Esau, Edom, he's got all the money, he's got all the control, he makes all the laws, all this, so on and so forth, in your right mindset, would you prefer to be a part of Esau and his team, in his kingdom, or would you rather be in a humble spirit with the lowly, the ones who are, in a contrite spirit and dedicate their, their service and their life to Yahweh Bashem Yahushai? See? He that handleth a matter wisely shall find good, and whoso trusteth in Yahweh, happy is he. And the men who are in this truth sincerely, we are the happiest people on the earth. All you gotta do is, I can see it on brothers. I can see you look at one of the brothers in this ministry. Even if it's a brother that you don't know that well, but you went to his camp in a different city, you can see the light on brothers. You can see how brothers are in a good, lively spirit. It's a different type of relationship when you get around the brothers, even if they're new brothers that you've just met. You can feel it in the spirit, like, these brothers they value you and you value them, you see. But the world's not like that. You have family members walking around, mad all the time, pissed off, stressed out, depressed, But the ones who have this oil, the ones who have this knowledge, for the most part, we are in a happy state of mind because we understand the prophecy. We know what the end all be all is. The wise in the heart shall be called prudent, and the sweetness of the lips increaseth learning. Yeah, you're wise in the mind, you're going to be called prudent. Why? Because prudent, that word, it means to consider the future. So we consider the prophecies, right? And the sweetness of the lips increases learning. And what's the sweetest thing? Remember, the scriptures is sweet in your mouth and then it becomes bitter, right? But we sharpen the brethren with our videos by speaking often to one another, like it tells you in I think it's Malachi 3:16. Understanding is a wellspring of life unto him that hath it, but the instruction of fools is folly. Right? So having this understanding, trying to keep the laws to the best of our ability, just that understanding alone, it brings forth life, you see? Because the law, it is life, That's why when we teach, we tell you how when we're in the kingdom and even the heathen are keeping the laws, because we're going to enforce the laws according to Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. So even the heathen are going to have, they're not going to live, they're not going to be eternals like the Israelites, but they're going to live much longer lives. And a big part of that is because they're going to be keeping the laws, statutes, and commandments of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. Okay? The heart of the wise teacheth his mouth, and addeth learning to his lips. You see that? And that goes for who's the wise right now? The wise are the ones who the Yahweh Bashem Yahushai is dealing with in the Holy Spirit. We have wisdom, right? You got a lot of smart people out there in this world, right? You got men who can build fucking nuclear missiles. You got men who can build fighter jets and whatever, build technology, build robots, AI, all this stuff, right? But just because they have that type of knowledge, the best knowledge to have is the wisdom of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. Okay? Pleasant words are as an honeycomb, sweet to the soul and health to the bones. Okay? And that's why one of the reasons why this truth is referred to as the comforter, because it's a comforter to the souls of the elect. Okay, starting out with the prophets. Healthy, brings health to our bones. The scriptures talks about a woman, a righteous woman, she brings health to her husband's bones. Well, our woman is Sophia, the wisdom. So this brings us health and liveliness, There is a way that seemeth right unto a man, but the end thereof are the ways of death. Right? If you go along your own understanding, or you go along the understanding of Esau Edom, the wicked, well, guess what? You're going to end up, being receiving the same fate, receiving the same consequence as the wicked or as the heathen, right? But if you lean on the understanding of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, and you pray and you give supplication to gain and gather wisdom, then guess what? You're gonna if you're part of that elect, you're gonna receive salvation. You're gonna be saved, like these pagan Christians say. They think they're already saved, which that in itself is a proud thing to say, that you've already been saved. That's why we always call ourselves the hopeful elect. He that laboureth for himself, for his mouth craveth it of him. An ungodly man diggeth up evil, and in his lips there is a burning fire. Right, and the ungodly man is if you want to just speak on the wicked, which is Esau Edom, the so-called white man. But when you start adopting his ways, adopting his mindset, adopting the ways of the heathen, then guess what? You're going to be caught up in that category, ungodly man. You're going to be looking at your brethren and you're going to be jealous, or you're going to hate him, or you're going to try and come up with some type of, you'll speak words that might put him in trouble, things like that. And this is the wicked. That's why the scriptures refers to them as the accuser of thy brethren. But guess what? If you're in the mindset, or you're in the same spirit as the so-called white man, the Edomite, well, guess what? You're going to have that same spirit towards your own brother, towards your own brethren. You're going to be hating on your own people, or you're going to be trying to hold down your own people. You're going to try and put a stumbling block in front of your own brother. A froward man soweth strife, and a whisperer separateth chief friends. Right? Motherfuckers be whispering and shit. And if you're sitting there, you're in a group, and you see some motherfuckers whispering, you're gonna be like, what the fuck are they whispering about? You know what I mean? A violent man enticeth his neighbor, and leadeth him into the way that is not good. Okay? So who's the actual violent man? Is the Esau Edom. But these pagan Christians, they want to say, oh, well, love thy neighbor. No, that applies to the Israelites. That law was given to the Israelites when we were in the wilderness, okay, after we left Egypt. Love thy neighbor was never applied to Babylon, America. Okay, you got to watch out for your neighbor here. He might try and fuck your wife. He might try and kill you. He might try and steal from you. All kind of shit. And that violent man, who's the true violent man? Esau Edom. It's just look at his track record. Look at all the wicked shit he's done throughout history. He shutteth his eyes to devise froward things. Moving his lips, he brings evil to pass. The hoary head is a crown of glory. And I believe that hoary means like a gray head. Let me look that up. I looked it up not that long ago, and I just want to make sure. Let's see. Yeah. Hoary describes something that is gray or white with age, or extremely old and stale. Damn, this is stale. So, but yeah, the gray hair is a crown of glory, right? If it be found in the way of righteousness. Okay, because you're going to have wicked motherfuckers with gray hair too. It doesn't mean everybody, because age doesn't translate to wisdom all the time, The scripture speaks on that too. Let me get that verse real quick. Let's see if I can find it. Yeah, there it is right there. Job 32 and 9. Because you've met some old dumb motherfuckers, You've met some men who had no wisdom, no matter how old they were, Doesn't always translate. Just because you're old doesn't mean you're going to have great wisdom. Doesn't mean you're going to be a prophet of Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai. Matter of fact, the majority of the men of Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai are not old men. They're younger men, I mean, and I'm not going to put that label on the elders, and they're not like old ass men. They're older. You know what I'm saying? But the disciples, their understudies, which, I hope I'm in that number. I hope I'm considered, one of the 144,000. But, the majority of us are not advanced in age, you see. When you see the prophets on the street corners, it's not like you see, you're going to have anomalies. You're going to have men who are older. But overall, collectively as a the 144,000 are not old men. But anyway, Job 32 and 9. Great men are not always wise, neither do the aged understand judgment. See that? So just because you're old doesn't mean you have wisdom. Just because you're old doesn't mean, you're a qualified prophet. Okay? Because there are men, obviously, that are they're in their advanced years, but yet they have no wisdom. Meanwhile, you have men who are young, and they have the Holy Spirit's dealing with them. And I've seen, we all have seen it. We've all seen young men and you look at them and you listen to them speak, and you're like, man, you're like impressed, like, dang, that young man, the Spirit's dealing with him, you know. So let's go back to Proverbs 16. I'm almost done here. Verse 32, he that is slow to anger is better than the mighty, and he that ruleth his spirit than he that taketh a city. So you see how important it is to control your spirit, and actually to stay, in patience. You don't want to be getting angry like you know how they say that term. He's like a light switch. That's not a good characteristic, especially for this truth. In this truth, what do we always tell you? You got to endure. Enduring takes patience. Enduring takes discipline. See? And if you're able to rule your spirit and endure and discipline yourself, you are likened unto better. You're better than a man that takes the whole city. Better than a man who conquers the whole city. Think about that. You know, that's heavy. You know. Verse 33: the lot is cast into the lap, but the whole disposing thereof is of Yahweh. Yeah, everything is Yahweh's. At the end of the day, Yahweh B'Shem Yoshai has the last word, right? Has the last. We don't have free will like everybody thinks. Again, the men who have the wisdom, the understanding, the truth, we know and we understand that the will, it's all about Yahweh B'Shem Yoshai's will, not our own will. Okay, and we can go to Romans 9 and prove that. Okay, Romans 9, and it's about the 20 something. Let me see. Oh, 19. Romans 9 and 19. Thou wilt say then unto me, why doth he yet find fault? For who hath resisted his will? Okay? So, you might think you have free will, but you don't. Okay? Who has resisted the will of Yahweh B'Shem Yoshai? And the answer is nobody. Like that song says from Outkast. Every time we talk about free will, I think about Outkast and that song where it says, you could plan a pretty picnic, but you can't predict the weather. See? You can plan a picnic, right? You say, oh, I'm going to have a picnic Saturday. And then the Most High Yahweh B'Shem Yoshai fuck up your plans, and it's nothing but rain and thunderstorm. Okay? So no matter what you can devise in your head, or you can think is going to come to pass, at the end of the day, it's all Yahweh B'Shem Yoshai will. Okay, that's just one simple. And to the elect, that that clicks, that makes sense to us. But to you, proud, haughty, lack of understanding spirits, you're going to sit there and even that's prideful to say, oh, I'm in control. I have I'm the one who makes what decisions and what I do, For that, even that alone means you're in your pride, thinking thinking you're in control. You think the servants of Yahweh B'Shem Yoshai, you think when we were young, there were signs, right, that we were the prophets, that we were the men of the Lord, but it wasn't our will. It never was our will. It was the will of Yahweh B'Shem Yoshai to gather us, put us together in the camps. It's not like we were the one, like I was 17 years old and I was like, you know what, I'm going to be in a camp when I'm 37. No, it was. It was all our steps directed by Yahweh B'Shem Yoshai. Whether, maybe if somebody told us that, then we would have been cool with it, right? But even if we weren't cool with it, it's, if it's the will of Yahweh B'Shem Yoshai to put you in a camp or to make you sincere, then that's what it is. There's no way around it. So anyway, I'm going to close out because I finished the chapter. I hope this lesson was edifying. I know it was edifying to the elect of the nation of Israel. So with that, I want to give all the praise, all the glory, all the honor unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakah, Kodash. Double honors goes out to the elder apostles of Great Millstone for teaching me the truth. Also, want to acknowledge all the Akyam who are pushing the truth with sincerity throughout the four corners of the earth. Shalom to the elect. Shalom.